Okay, so I'm also an application engineer, like Antoine. So I work with enabling new technologies like Realsense with top ISVs. In addition to that, I work on tablet projects. This is one of my sort of latest projects that I'm working on with Microsoft and a company called Exertis. So it's a simple Cherry Trail tablet, which is Intel's latest and greatest Atom platform. And it has a nice party trick. So you can slide it into a docking station. No, it's fine. Yeah, I can slide it into a docking station, and it becomes like a nice gaming companion. Running Windows 10, it has the Xbox button, so it's a really nice Xbox One streaming device. Really, really cool. I'm going to have it here, so if you want to have a look at it and play with it, feel free. Okay, now I'll carry on my presentation. Okay, quick introduction. I know I've only got half an hour, and we have a lot to cover. So, intro to Realsense, talk about some of the Realsense SDK modules, the different camera technologies. We will look closely into some of the modules, and what all of this means to gaming. That's what I'm going to cover today. Okay, so what is Realsense? So, hands up, who's familiar with Realsense? Okay, not too many people. Right, so who's even just heard of Realsense? Not maybe used it, just heard of it. Okay, great, so you've heard about it. So what Realsense does, it pretty much adds human-like senses, touch, ears, eyes, speech, to your computer, to the brain of the computer. Okay? So who's familiar with Windows Hello? Who's ever used Windows Hello on Windows 10? No? Okay, so Windows Hello is like a security feature. You don't need to log in with a password anymore. It can just recognize your face. But you do need to have a 3D camera on your device to recognize your face, and then you can log into your device. So, oops. So we have two types of cameras, front-facing and world-facing. Okay, so front-facing, we have a developer kit available. Well, we have developer kits available today for both front-facing and user-facing. If you have some nice ideas of applications which can benefit from Realsense, let me know. We'll try to get you a camera. If you want to just develop by yourselves, you can buy these cameras. I have a link on another slide. You can buy them for around $99. So products today that you can find is you can find many sort of laptops, all-in-ones. We have another project called Winona, which is coming soon. So that's the camera will be sold as a peripheral, right? So they're the front-facing usages, the rear-facing usages. So you'll see the rear camera on tablets, phablets, detachables. That's where you'll expect to see the rear camera. So I think I pretty much said this on the previous slide. Front-facing cameras, all-in-ones, notebooks, convertibles. The crossover or the sort of overlap is detachables, where you can either have a front-facing camera or a rear camera. Tablets, phablets, you'll only expect to see rear-facing cameras. Okay, so this is what the front, so we called the front-facing camera an F200. The F stands for front. And the front camera, it pretty much has an RGB sensor, HD, and it has an infrared projector, which projects what we call a coded light technology. So it projects a pattern, and then it receives that pattern. From what it receives, it has an ASIC, which can then calculate the actual depth. It can create like a depth map with that, using the infrared. These cameras will only work on Gen 4, so Intel Gen 4 and above, and you have to have a USB 3. The front-facing camera is designed for short range. So another name that's referred to the camera is called short range. So front-facing, short range, the rear camera, long range. So the sort of range we expect is 0.2 to 1.2 meters. The operating systems it supports is Windows 8.1 and Windows 10. See, the technology it uses coded light. The depth is VGA, and the RGB side is 1080p. Okay, the rear-facing camera, so you can't see the R, but that should be R200. That works in a different way. So that works on a stereoscopic technology, a little bit how your eyes work. You have a left IR camera and a right IR camera. And then it uses that, so the actual shift in the image that you see, so if you ever try this, if you sort of have a finger and you shut one eye and then shut the other eye, you'll see a movement. So if you sort of line up with something straight, something sort of vertical, you shut one, shut the other, and you'll see a disparity. It uses that disparity to work out the depth. And the reason why it has an IR projector, if you have a plain white surface, it's very hard to work out that movement because it's just white. So what the IR projector does, it projects like a texture. And once you have that texture on a surface, it's easier to work, it's easier to see that disparity. And in addition to the infrared, it also has a color camera. So you can't see it very clearly, but this image to that image, there's a slight movement. They're not in the same position. And that's the information it needs to work out the actual depth. Speaker. Okay, let me just, here? Okay. So this is what the SDK looks like. So obviously, it's a developer kit. You need an SDK to develop your applications. This is what it looks like. So your applications sit above there. The interfaces that we support with Realsense, as you can see here, the common ones, C++, C#, Unity. Unity, you do need, what version was it? 4.63 with patch 1 and above to make it work with Realsense. And then it has all the underlining modules there. So the interfaces pretty much hides the complexity of coding directly or writing your own algorithm. So all the algorithms are there, and you have a high-level interface that you can use. Here are some of the modules that we have. So I'll split them into two sides and the common. So you have a user-facing modules, things like hand and blob tracking. You don't expect to do hand tracking on a rear camera. So it's only a front-facing module. So you can do scrolling, you can have predefined gestures like thumbs up, a V sign, and it recognizes all of those. So these are front-facing modules, gesture recognition, background removal and subtraction. So this is really, really cool. So anyone familiar with background segmentation and background subtraction? No? So pretty much you are. Okay, so what you can do there, so if I'm presenting and I have the camera on me, I can hide the background. I can remove the backgrounds real time. I can superimpose different backgrounds. Very, very cool. And I have some nice demos of this. So once I finish my talk, I have some nice demos. Anyone ever use Personify, XSplit? Anyone use XSplit before? Okay, so XSplit recently introduced Realsense into their application. So you can be when you're talking about games, you can have your picture on one corner, you can talk about the game. You can be within your presentation, for example. So very, very, very cool. Things like speech recognition, that can be used for both front-facing and rear-facing. Doesn't really matter, because it's speech. It's not dependent on the camera. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay. We got things like person, face tracking, 3D object scanning, tracking, object recognition, augmented reality, scene perception, loads of different modules there. Enhanced photography. You wouldn't really expect that on a laptop with a front-facing camera, so that's a rear-facing module. Okay, so, yeah, just moving on now. So let's have a quick look at the user-facing features. One slide here which pretty much explains some of the modules that we have. I am going to go into these. I'm not going to spend too long. So things like finger tracking. So the camera can recognize 22 points on your hand. So all the joints, right? So it can recognize all the joints, the palm. It knows which way your hand is. Gesture recognition. So it can recognize 10 predefined gestures. So, you know, fingers spread, it can do a wave, a click. It can recognize all of those. Things like face tracking. It can track 78 points of your face, so around your eyebrows, your cheekbone, your pupils. You can track all of those. Speech recognition, yeah, command control, dictation. We spoke about background segmentation. So I spoke about the facial. So these are the different points that you can recognize on your face. So your eyebrows, your eyes, various points around your chin. Also, what's pretty cool, with the new SDK, it can estimate your heart rate and your pulse. It's only an estimation, but it can do that. So that could be used in gaming for adaptive gameplay. So if you're getting a bit bored, you can change the game slightly. It can adapt it so it can speed things up. So pretty cool. Eye tracking also supported. Not great, but it does support eye tracking. It can also recognize various poses, things like tilting your head, smiling, tongue out. And these are all predefined facial poses that it can recognize. So you can code, you can change your game to scan any of those. You can do raise an eyebrow, close an eye, and it can recognize all of these different expressions. Also poses, which is quite a good one. So if I'm in front of the camera, if I tilt my head, rotate it, so it can recognize your role and pitch. So for example, you can just, if you're playing a game, you can move your head around to change your camera view, which could be quite cool. Okay, so these are some examples, some screenshots of the different things that I mentioned. So detection, face tracking. Once it's tracked your face, you can move around. As long as you're not out of the camera field of view, it will recognize you and it will know who you are. So it's also, it's detection. It's also face recognition. It can recognize you from someone else. It's not just a face, right? It recognizes me. It knows my features. Then someone else can come into the camera view and it will recognize them. So that's the bottom right. Landmarks. So they're your 78 points that you can see there. Your pose. You can move your head, slant it, rotate it. It can recognize that. It can recognize various expressions, which we spoke, right? So the expressions we mentioned in the previous slide. Okay, hand module. So hand is great because it tracks X, Y, Z, meaning 6 degrees of freedom. So you can move your hand around and it can track your hand. So it's not locked. It's not like a face where it's sort of locked to its position. It's got 6 degrees of freedom. It understands the body sides. I mentioned that 22 joints, so it can recognize, it can track all of those positions. It can, on the next slide, it shows which are the predefined gestures. So let me just go to the next slide. So it can recognize all of those. So tap, full pinch, a fist, a pinch, a swipe, different poses, V sign, thumbs up, thumbs down. So for example, we're working with a browser company, so thumbs up, save bookmark, thumbs down, close tab, some cool features to have in a browser. So in addition to hand tracking using the skeleton module, we have a blob detection, which is a lot more smaller impact to your system, takes up less resources. Nice to use, blob. So if you don't need that precision of a hand skeleton, you can use a blob, right? So if you want to just scroll up and down, you don't need to have it doesn't need to track your fingers. You can have your hand as a contour or a blob and move your scroll. Okay, little look on background subtraction module. So background subtraction, this is you real life. You can remove the background, or you can replace the background with something else. And here's some nice examples. So this example here is an application that you would find in the SDK. So we have sample applications in the SDK for all the modules that I just mentioned. This one here, background removal. So this is me, my home office. You can see the background. And then you can remove the background. You can apply different sorts of backgrounds. We've added Realsense in the Personify application. So the real person's on the right-hand side. That's a friend streaming over the internet. And they can both play a game together. They can see their expressions on how they're playing. So they're playing a simple sort of tennis sort of game there. So they can be part of their game. And that's a bit like XSplit, where you can be part of your sort of gaming broadcast. Okay, we have a 3D scanning module. The 3D scanning module is capable of recognizing objects, face, head, full body. Again, this really depends on what camera you have. So a front-facing camera you can use for objects and for face. For head, you would need, for head and full body, you need a rear-facing camera because you have more range in a rear-facing camera. We have a speech module. Speech, we can do speech recognition, so you can add command control in your game. How much longer is that? 2 more minutes? Okay. Let me try and speed up a little bit. Can I have 5? Okay. Let me try and speed up a little bit. I want to show you some examples. Okay, I'm going to skip this. Okay, enhanced photography. That's another cool feature. So you can take a picture of something, and because it has that 3D depth map, you can work out measurements, rough measurements. So you can take a picture of pretty much anything, and because it has that depth built into the picture, you can then work out different measurements. And also you can see, you can focus on different areas. Okay, skip this. Okay, this is quite important. So how can all of this, I mentioned quite a few things here, how can a lot of this be used for gaming, right? So this is something that I sort of thought about. Facial expressions, heart rate, again, you can adapt your gameplay real time for how you're feeling, which could be a good one. Face, body, or scanning, right? So you can scan yourself and you can be part of your game. So for example, there's a few applications that can do this. One is Etsy, which can work with an application called Uranium, right? And you can integrate, you can scan yourself, and you can be part of your game. Webcam background removal, again, better streaming experience. Things like the Personify example that I showed you, the game broadcasting, so you can be part of your broadcast. Head motion, pose. You can add that into your game again, so you can move your head around and change that camera view if you want to. Object recognition, yeah, sort of speaks for itself. Speech recognition, I'm just jumping on now. Speech recognition, you can add command control to your game. So if it's like a shooting game, you can say things like reload. Okay, I just need to wrap it up. Let me just show you one quick video. So this one here is an application by FaceRig. It's an avatar, and he can mimic the avatar with his facial expressions. I don't want to spend too long on this, but yeah, okay. So that's one example of what you can do. This is a game called Wave Warrior, which can use your hand as a blob. So it's a bit like a Kinect game. So you can, pretty much, yeah, Kinect game. So you can use your hand as a blob. And I have a demo of this if you want to try it, or I have the real application. Yep, pretty cool. I'm going to speed up because I know we haven't got long left. And a lot of these examples I have, so come over and see me. This one here, this is the 3D scanning one that I mentioned. So he can scan his face, his body, and he can integrate that into his gameplay. So there's some applications today that support it. Arma 3, GTA 5, Skyrim, more coming. So all of these games are applicable. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Okay. All right, I'll start. This is one of my colleagues, Stylianou, and you might know him. We took a scan of him and we included him into a game. Thank you. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. So this is just a scan of his face, body, and we can include that into a game. Another example of augmented reality. And all of this you can do with Realsense. You know, just need camera and... Okay. Just to wrap it up, right, so I'm going to wrap it up now. So how to get started, pretty much download the SDK. You need hardware, obviously, so anything 4th gen and above, Intel Core. OS-wise, Windows 64-bit, 8.1 or 10. Languages, we spoke about that, and also Unity. Okay, so I think we can wrap it up, yeah? So just want to, yeah. So any questions, guys? So I had to move a bit faster there. Any questions? Yeah.